The Catholic community was outraged. Recruitment into the I.R.A. soared.
Shoot a place. Come on, shoot it. Take a photo of it. Shoot a place. Come on. There, my phone fucking Lord, yeah. Shoot a place. I shoot now.
Go back. Go home. Go home. Go home now. You only touch here, sir. Go home now.
Look at that. Go home. Look at that.
Take it easy.
Get down my fucking name.
Take it easy. Come on. Break it up.
The authorities faced the classical problem of guerrilla war. How to neutralize guerrilla armies without alienating the community from which they spring.
We're not trying to excite the situation at all, obviously. What I would like is to make sure that everybody, doesn't crowd round and create a crowd, because we don't want any trouble tonight, obviously, all right?
36 hours we're taking out. You black and tan bastards.
In the intervening 7 months, over 4,000 homes, mostly Catholic, had been searched for arms. This film was shot immediately after just such a search.
You're sticking your foot down. Oh, look, Christ, it's one way cameras on them bastards and them's one way down. Go on, you dirty rotten bastard, you cunty! Fucking go ahead! Fucking shake me! Go ahead! Fucking shake me, you bastard! Go ahead! Get off! Are you taking away? I'm sorry, are you fucking marching them dirty rotten? Are you ready?
Catholic women might vent their anger on the troops in the streets, but young Catholic men were engaging them in guerrilla war.
Oh, why don't you shut up? Watch your back!
The disaffection of the Catholic community was complete.
When they come again, and again when they come out.
With the Provisionals a potent force in Northern Ireland, there was a growing demand for stricter security measures. Outside Stormont, the Northern Ireland Parliament, Protestants demanded imprisonment without trial, internment of those suspected of being members of the Provisional IRA. Lord Carrington, British Minister of Defence, met Chichester Clerk on Saturday, the 20th of March, 1971. In line with British government policy, he would commit only a few more troops to Northern Ireland and refuse to tighten security further. Chichester Clerk, like O'Neill before him, had been unable to placate the Catholic community and was now unable to extract from the British sufficient to hold his cabinet together. At a cabinet meeting later that day, he resigned. Unionist politicians thought that the man capable of delivering a strong security policy was Brian Faulkner, who succeeded him a few days later.
The kernel of our immediate problems in Ulster is the law and order situation. Here, we don't need new principles. What we need are practical results on the ground. Practical results in the elimination of terrorism, in the elimination of sabotage, and in the ending of riots and disorder. The rule of law will operate in all parts of Northern Ireland so that the security which goes with the rule of law can be enjoyed quite literally by all our citizens.
Along with his firm law and order policy, Faulkner made overtures to the new moderate Catholic party, the SDLP. An accommodation seemed possible. Then the British Army shot dead 2 Catholics during a riot in Derry. The rioting intensified. The SDLP could no longer cooperate with Faulkner. Civil commotion continued. The provisional bombing campaign was escalating. 220 bombs resulted in 6 deaths in the first 6 months of 1971 alone, and provisional snipers were now shooting British soldiers. Faulkner determined to be firm. The rattle of the bin lids gave warning of internment. In the Army's first raid, 342 people had been picked up, none of them loyalists. At 11:15 that morning, Faulkner, Home Secretary as well as Prime Minister, held a press conference.
Every means has been tried to make terrorists amenable to the law. But the terrorist campaign continues at an unacceptable level. And I have had to conclude that the ordinary law cannot deal comprehensively or quickly enough with such ruthless viciousness. I have therefore decided, after weighing all the relevant considerations, including the views of the security authorities, and after consultation with Her Majesty's government in the United Kingdom last Thursday, to exercise, where necessary, the powers of detention and internment vested in me as Minister of Home Affairs.
There was a violent reaction by Catholics. Shops and factories were burnt. Riots in Derry, Newry, Strabane, Armagh, as well as Belfast, went on for 4 days and left 22 dead. In the Ardougne district of Belfast, Protestants abandoned their homes before Catholic intimidation, burning them as they left to prevent Catholics occupying them. Over 200 houses were gutted as families fled. In the wake of these events, there were 7,000 refugees. It had been the worst spate of violence since 1969. Faulkner, needing to placate Unionists, had to be seen to be firm. Internment had been under consideration for some time as an alternative to a full-scale military offensive against the Provisionals. Its successful use in the late 50s convinced Faulkner that it would be effective. 1,500 people were interned. 2/3 of them had been released by the end of the year.